All right, let's talk about off-ball linebacker Zack Baun, who was an all-pro, and I'll say this, he might be the key to the Eagles, potentially, if they're going to win this game defensively. I think that kind of the two biggest players I would almost say for Philadelphia, outside of the obvious, like Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts, perhaps the two key players I would keep an eye out for are Dallas Goedert on the offense and then Zack Baun on the defense, and this play is exactly why. So what the Commanders are going to do here is they're not actually going to, Daniel just isn't going to actually look in that direction, but this is what the Chiefs like to do, right? They like to have these sort of pick play rub route situations, and then that means that the running back on this play, is the one they usually want to get the ball to. That is where Zack Baun is. He's the one covering the running back, and watch what he's going to do on this play. As you see, he's going to get through, and he is in position to make this tackle. Again, Daniels is looking somewhere else. In fact, Daniels is going to make this play work. Watch, Daniels decides to step up and rush instead, but this is what Zack Baun is capable of. That's kind of exactly what the Chiefs want to do, is run these kind of clever plays, but for the Eagles, they essentially have a guy who's great at covering these. Something like this is another thing that they like to do. So this is a 3rd down and 9. The Eagles like to play zone coverage. And what do the Chiefs like to do in this situation? Well, what does any team like to do? You want to get a player over the middle of the field, kind of in a gap in coverage. You see Zack Baun, he's the circle that I put in white right here. As you see when this play begins, Zach Ertz is going to try and get open. Okay, simple enough, right? And I think, Daniel's looking somewhere else, but nonetheless, watch what Zack Baun does. Watch, he's just going to kind of drift back, covering up Ertz for as long as possible until a safety could come in and finish up that route. So maybe if you're Kelsey, you could try to be really smart and go past him, but then, juke back towards the other side, but then are you going to have enough time to pull that off? I don't know. At the end of the day, Zack Baun does a great job at taking away that middle area of the field. And then also in the running game, he can do things like this, where this is, again, not going to be a play where he has an impact. I don't know why I keep showing plays where he doesn't actually have an impact, but just because I think, it's just as important what you do on the plays where you don't actually matter as the ones where you do. It just goes to show what you can do. This play, you have a guard going to block him one-on-one. Watch as he's able to kind of juke out that guard and still was in position to where he didn't take himself out of the play. Sometimes you try to juke out a guard and take yourself out of the play. He didn't do that. Really good job. Also, watch Jalen Carter. He actually hops over a running back on this play. That's fun. Running back was trying to cut him, and it did not go well. So yeah, that was fun. Anyway, right here, what's going to happen is this next one is another really important play to show what he can do. Because again, what do the Chiefs like to do? They're not a downfield passing attack. What they like to do is dink and dunk, throw underneath. That's a big part of their strategy. You see Zack Baun, you might notice, wait, he's not a middle linebacker on this play? Correct, he is not the middle linebacker on this play. They will mix and match. He plays mostly middle linebacker, but not exclusively. And if there's a lot of players on one side of the field like there is right now, and if there's a tight end on that side of the field like there is right now, he might play strong side linebacker instead of middle linebacker. Anyway, you see that for the Commanders, they're going to just flip this one underneath. Okay, we're trying to, can't go broke making a profit, right? Let's just gain some yards right here. Zack Baun's playing this perfectly, though. If Dimey Brown is going to try and run up and make a play, he's going to have to go over the middle of the field. As a linebacker, you can't cover the whole field. You got to just make sure you're covering where you're supposed to cover. That's what he's doing. But also watch this hustle as when a couple, players aren't quite able to bring him down right away, he rushes over and he knocks the football out. So that's another good thing. And that's something this Eagles defense just does a really good job of, is knocking the ball out. They punch at the ball. So for the Chiefs, you got to make sure that you have two hands on the ball if Zack Baun is nearby. One hand on the ball while you're getting tackled, that just can't happen. Now, of course, he is human and you can beat him. One way you can beat him is with, this play. It's designed to, again, a lot of times the weak spots against zone coverage are near the middle linebacker, which is part of why this Eagles defense has been so good this year, because Zack Baun just essentially makes those gaps smaller. But on this play, the Commanders are still going to execute by hitting this small target. Not as big of a target, but there still is a target there. And let's just be honest, Patrick Mahomes is very good, and he can hit a small target. So now let's talk about the Chiefs side of things. I was trying to think of, okay, what's an example of them playing a good defense with a really good linebacker? well, the Buccaneers didn't really have a great defense, especially, they had some injuries, but Lavonte David's a great linebacker, and I went back and watched this game, and he actually was giving them trouble throughout this game. The middle of the field was not working too great. You see, we're late in the third quarter, only 10 points. That's not usual Chiefs football, so definitely Lavonte David was having an impact, and what the Chiefs did was actually pretty interesting. Like you see on this play, it's going to be Travis Kelce on the outside. They started moving him toward the outside just to try and get him some better matchups. They like him more against receivers, and that's what happened. Now, Xavier Worthy could also be that guy. He really wasn't the player he is now back in week 9, I believe, when this took place. It might have been week 10, actually. I think there was maybe a bye week before this, but you get the idea. Definitely, one of those I think interesting situations where they say, well, let's just change things up. Let's not work over the middle of the field. Let's try to go away from the best player, which kind of makes sense. But again, you can still attack a very good player. You just have to be smart about how you do it. So like this instance, for example, it's a 3rd down and 5. And again, this is cover 3, so a little bit different. But you see Lavonte David's zone right here. What's essentially happening is they have Travis Kelce going just past the sticks in Lavonte David's zone. Lavonte David's going to cover Travis Kelce. Yes, you're taking your best player, or at least one of your best players, out of the game in doing this, but it can help set up another route, which now could be open. As you see, that's exactly what happens. So sometimes you just have to be a little smarter in how you make this stuff work. Use great players as decoys to take away other great players, and then you can attack the not as good players. Now, again, Tampa Bay's defense, especially in this game, they had a backup linebacker in. Like, they were not quite what Philadelphia is, and trying to take advantage of other players isn't going to go quite as well, but it's still probably the move against Zack Baun. So as for my final predictions page for Zack Baun, I think I have to do this again. This is now the 3rd time I'm going to give a +5 to the Eagles right here. I think he's a real good player, and really not just as a good player, but perfectly fits what they will need to do to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So you see that my overall page, the total is getting very high in the Eagles' favor, but of course, I knew going into this that it was going to be higher for the Eagles than for the Chiefs, and obviously some of this is just what videos I happen to choose to make on, right? But still, it is kind of interesting how much it is tilting in the Eagles' favor, despite the fact that this is literally the worst way possible to measure how good the teams are, and it's just for fun. But yeah, I think +5 for Zack Baun feels fair. He's been great this postseason. He's been great this season for the Eagles, and it's legitimately great stuff. It's not just like, oh, it's working out. He's been a big part of what makes this defense great. And if you're going to try and avoid the middle of the field, that's where the Chiefs like to operate. If you're going to try and just operate in the middle of the field constantly, listen, it could work. I could see Kelce's making it work. I could see Andy Reid making it work. But it feels like things could go wrong if you do that. And that's something that would scare me if I'm a Chiefs fan. So if I'm an Eagles fan, this is one of the things I'm looking at and saying, this is the plus we have. And if they win the game, I think it's going to be in large part because of Zack Baun. But that's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.